Welcome to Warblock. I'm just gonna play this game a second time, one that I sort of played yesterday. But if you're watching this in a million years' time, you won't see the relevance of that. The road to Tumas, or Tumas, however you want to pronounce it. Essentially, it's an interesting scenario. I did sort of suggest or contemplate when I played it changing a few things. I didn't change anything other than I added one extra drone for the Azerbaijanis. The reason I haven't changed anything because I think it's sort of an interesting situation that reflects maybe what was happening to some extent at the time. So we had 5+3 before, so we should have 5+4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. But what I'm going to do in this instance, because I got a bit stumped in the previous video because I ended up with just 4 drones. A lot of them were shot down by the air defense units. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try something out, because if you recall this war, I can never pronounce the name, the Nagorno-Karabakh war, whatever. A lot of the videos that came out were of air defense units being blown up, which I always found quite ironic, because you would have thought that if air defense units were good against anything, it would be air attack. But apparently not. But here we got 2, and this was actually in the original video, but they're both sat together. So I'm basically just going to blow them up. I thought, well, hang on, this is the way to do it. Now, obviously, we might lose some drones because we're going against 2 aborted. Now, the thing is, they're not just one unit, so in this instance, we've got 2.7 against one and 4 against the other. So that 4 is significant, and they both got through. Oh, no effect, no effect. 2, no effect. So he's now at 4.75. He's now at 4. 4.25. So he's basically on the verge of routing. So that was probably a direct hit on, a major radar bit. Destroyed one. Destroyed the other. So we now got 2 spare drones, and we've taken out their air defense. The air defense was hitting me before. I haven't played this since, and I thought, well, hang on, this is how I do it, and this is how it was done in the, if you look at the videos and things that are appearing. So the other one's in there, I think. Because once they've lost all their air defense, then we can just sit there, and I think the drones will be a little more effective, because they were getting knocked down basically by the concentration. Because what the Armenian player did, not maybe necessarily consciously, and it was me who, playing both sides, was to move or to concentrate an umbrella of defense around all 3 air defense units. So anything that was drone attacked was then fighting against 3 units. We've not lost any drones yet. We had a few aborts and a few no effects. In this one, he's being defended by the other units. I think that's actually right. So I think that's the way to do it. So we sort of continue with essentially what we did last time. So we have the same conversation about cutting corners. Right, so we can use some of these oh no, they don't seem to be in range. Oh, I know, they're not available yet. I keep forgetting about things like that. They have to be available or something, I don't know. Right, so that's our first turn. I'm not going to attack, because essentially this is sort of an air assault thing, demonstrating the significance of that. Basically, we want to take this stack out. Now, they might be aware of that, so anyone near an air defense unit has to be concerned. And I did notice, if you look at the photos, they have the air defence units quite often don't appear to be unmanned. And I think what's happening is that, and if you look closely around, you'll see that there are sort of trenches and bunkers, like, nearby, maybe 50, 100 yards away. And I think that basically they set these things up, and then they dig themselves in like quite a way away, and they only go near these rocket launchers and artillery pieces and air defense units when they absolutely have to man them and control them, and then they run away because they're targets. I saw this on some of the artillery stuff, and I can't say I was certain. I'm certain, I'm absolutely correct on this, but it appeared that they ran up to the artillery piece, they fired it, and then it ran away again. They didn't want to be near it for any longer than they absolutely had to. But so there's no artillery in this game, but whose turn is it? What am I doing? Let's go on to the Armenian turn now. So they're all going to sort of sit there, but I think we want to put. So do we want to leave this air defense unit there because he will attract a lot of flak? Do we want to leave these guys there? Because I think it might be better to fall back. Well, he wants to recover. We want to bring these guys further forward. Okay. Right. It's interesting, really, because what I'm not into is designing a game so that you have to do such and such, and it's all sort of contrived. I mean, I had the same, other than the fact that I added a drone, it's exactly the same as I played it previously, but I've changed the strategy, and I was thinking we've actually used these drones. And so the thing is, it's similar to a simulation, a mild simulation. I mean, it's essentially, I've always focused, more towards leveraging the game as a simulation, but not saying in any sense that it is a simulation. You can say, well, it has aspects of simulation about it. It is still a game, but obviously it's designed to be realistic, and that's why a lot of scenarios are unbalanced, because they were unbalanced. Scenarios where it's pointless playing the other person because you don't have any units or something. Nothing you can do, and overwhelming odds, and not much of a game at all. But the thing is that I think a lot of these other games, well, I mean, I say this in context because I did actually I've downloaded a couple of games. You see them on the internet and they're free. And I downloaded this game, and it has like a fair following on the internet, and as far as I'm concerned, I've never been impressed by I've never been impressed by them. In fact, there's nothing. I would almost say there's nothing digitally in game sense that impresses me at all anywhere. I say that because I watch a lot of these videos of things, and some of them are sort of interesting just to hear the people talking, and look at the variations and context of how these games work. I say that in sort of context because I also watch a lot of these people playing traditional hex encounter games, and the hex encounter games tend to sort of attempt to reflect, that sort of the simulation aspect of a game. I think that's one of these companies. I think it's SPI is something simulation. simulation products I don't know. Some of them are actually more focused actually on trying to represent some sort of simulation. I don't really like the true essence of the simulation, because once you start to simulate that, you've got to simulate the full complexities of modern war, which are mainly more about logistics and not so much combined arms in the Napoleonic sense, but there's as much politics involved as anything else. If you want to say simulate things, well, it's pointless. And a lot of the games, the things they don't do. And I mean, I did refugees in this, and it always struck me as being something that no other game does it. I did see a game on the internet recently, and it had a special marker on the board called traffic jams. And I thought, I wonder what that's supposed to mean, because they don't want to have refugees, because then you can blow them up. And it's sort of like, we can't have you simulating, the true effects of war. I mean, what would, a lot of these people say, I'm simulating the Eastern Front as Nazi Germany plows into Russia one way or the other, whatever stage it's at. Army Group North, Army Group Centre, Army Group South, or whatever. But they never have a counter for pestilence and plague, famine and disease, crime. None of these things are simulated into their grand simulations. And so I think, you have to abstract a lot from everything that happens. But I've never seen a computer game that does that. And the point I'm trying to get to here in that sort of general blurbage, which maybe I should try to avoid generally, is that I downloaded this game, and just the other day, it's the second big one I downloaded. I downloaded another one where you have to build a ski resort. I love games. It's one of my favourite games. The best game I ever played was a game about you built a holiday empire. It was like Resort Manager or something, and you had this tropical island or something, and you had to build like hotels and ice cream kiosks and sunbathing decks. And the whole idea was to get tourists to come to your island and enjoy themselves, and you had to sort of have all these sorts of things. Like if you had too many hotels without enough things for them to do, they'd get angry and go. You'd have all these irate holidaymakers leaving on the ferry, and it's fantastic. I love that game, and I sought that game out because I built a game years and years ago. Well, I have a long history of gaming in a particular and varied sense, really. But I played this game called Hidden and Dangerous, and it was written not so far from where I live, and it was a great game. And it was before, a lot of awareness of gaming was about, in the sense that I played it still with a sense of awe and wonder as the digital age evolved. And I had determined my own strategy, and basically I didn't really go around using the little squads as teams. I just went round and used everyone as a sniper. So you could approach every scenario with regards limited to, there were about 3 or 4. One where you had to go in and you have to jump around the corner quickly and shoot with a submachine gun as a bloke jumps out of an office. There's another one in a submarine pen where you have to open the door, and you have to it took me about 50 or 60 turns or whatever, a hell of a lot of game saves to actually open the door and shoot the guy. Maybe I wasn't doing it right. But other than that, you did everything with a sniper rifle at long range. You just work your way slowly through the whole game. And it struck me that, hang on, it's got this huge map, and the graphics are really good, and that's what I recalled. I remember having a dream with one of the scenes in it, and that struck me as being quite important, really, because it struck me as a memory. And I had this memory of shooting loads of people in the head and watching their brains explode. Although it was quite primitive graphics, it was still the idea. And I even, I did some work that reflected that. Actually, I won't refer to what it was, but but the thing is, I thought, I don't want to have memories like this, and so I built my own game based on something else that I won't go into here. But I also sought out, I can remember going directly to the shop looking for a game that didn't involve killing people, and there's basically nothing. The only thing I actually found, and this was when you went to shops to get video games, buying them online was still sort of as embryonic as it was. This had been about 2000, and I bought, I can't remember what it was. It's something Resort Manager, And I bought another game, but it was really hard to find anything that didn't involve killing people. And I know they've got sim cities now and stuff like that, and lots of railway simulations, and none of these things ever appealed to me. But the ski resort manager did. But anyway, so I downloaded this war game. This is getting into a long diatribe now, but I downloaded this war game within the last 3 or 4 days. It was free, and I played it, and it was maybe on a map like this. And it just became very clear that it was just, I call them tram lines, and I think that's actually part and parcel of a proper term, because I mean, basically, I never had an Xbox, and I always used to go past and see these Xbox games in the stores, and I always felt I was missing out on something, because, I didn't want to spend money on something as stupid as that. But the games always looked really good, and especially the Call of Duty ones. The artwork was fantastic. I can remember this Special Ops one, and it was, Call of Duty Special Ops, and I thought, man, that looks really good. And I didn't have an Xbox, so I couldn't play it. And about 3 or 4 years ago, I actually bought a second-hand Xbox on eBay. To be quite honest, it wasn't cheap, but it wasn't expensive. I think it was about £50 or £60, and I bought a bunch of stuff, topping at maybe £100 or something. And then I bought about 30 or 40 games. Basically, I bought all the games that I could possibly get, dating back. Some of them are actually quite old. I was buying games, I didn't really realise when they were made, and when I got them, in some of them you could see they were actually quite old, and some of them were quite new, but they're all the same. The only one I liked was the racing cards game. They're all the same. You get this tram line of you have to follow this contrived sort of tunnel of action where you have to go and you have to take out this trench, and then you have to go down this. There's no, although some of them pertain to have different ways of getting to the other end, you still got to go from one end of a maze to another, even if there's 3 or 4 different routes. And that's not how games are, but this game I downloaded essentially is the same thing. You start off on this island, and although it was more of a sort of a starter on how to play it, it's quite clear that the things don't make any sense. You so in this sense, you've got to drive down here, you've got to take this place, and then there's this objective, and then you've got to get to the badass, the boss at the end, and this is the final objective. In this game, and that's how a lot of these computer games are, whereas the board games tend not to be like that. But in this sort of simulation, you've got to sort of, the whole point I'm trying to get to is the concept of using these drones. Now, I didn't use the drones in the first game because I wasn't sort of really considering that. But as a sort of simulation, you sort of think, well, hang on. From that perspective, you suddenly put the drones properly into perspective, in that it's sort of almost a potentially going to be a walkover because of the drones. Now, sort of lost track of what I was thinking about there, but it's the Azerbaijani turn, so we've got all these drones, and to some extent, you sort of think, well, it's not going to be very nice playing the Armenian player, but that's how it was, and that's how we know how it was now, because it's now history. It's not happening. It's now in theory over, although I can't imagine either side starting it again. I mean, the Armenians really don't want to be losing anymore, and the Azerbaijanis probably don't want to be going up against Russia. They've made their point and they've made their gains. So it's interesting to sort of look at it and how it all panned out. And I think these drones are central to it all. And we're about to sort of, examine the next sort of layer of that, again, by possibly concentrating our drones on this stack here. Because we've not got 2 anti-aircraft, we've only got 1. We haven't done any damage to it yet, but I think the anti-aircraft get attacked last in a stack that has infantry not included. You can only attack it if you've destroyed all the infantry first, or other units first. I don't know, I can't remember, but it seems to be panning out that way. Not doing a lot of damage. They're heavily entrenched. 0.9. Oh, we lost a drone. Okay. 1.6, 3.1. We lost the drone. It's expensive doing it that way. 0.5, so I don't want to be attacking him yet. Anyway. Oh no, he took the wrong road. It always makes me laugh when that happens. Don't worry, he can catch up. Leave it at that. We lost the drone, it hurts. Right. Well, he's going to build some mines. No, he's going to build an earthworks. We want to protect the air defense unit. Ouch, I made a mistake. They started off overstacked, but they can no longer restack. Leave him there. Right. So there's a little bit more of a maneuver game now. Now we're going to have trouble with these little things, so we might want to take them out. There's no air defense around here, so let's maybe take these units out if we can. So he left them stuck together. One's taking a pounding, the other one's getting away. They're not going to survive, are they? They're doing well to get this far. 7.1, 5.2. Wow. 8.8, 6. I think just going back to that point, because it's always something that I labour on, really, because it's sort of, so, I sort of think, well, why I don't want to say it quite like this, but why don't you play other games? Well, I don't play other games because I'm too busy, but why don't I consider other games? And they always follow that same sort of pattern. There was one game in particular, and I looked at it and I thought, well, you know what? That's it suffers from the same things. It was basically you had to do it by 7 turns or something. And it became clear. I played it again and again and again. I played it probably about 10 times or something. And I basically determined that in order to do it in 7 turns, you had to do certain things all in sequence. So you had to figure out where this artillery was and get it out first, because otherwise, the artillery would slowly knock you down. You had to get rid of this one unit early on because it blocked your movement, because you needed to move like 10 hexes, and so that had to be done first. And then you had to move, you had to knock this unit out the road, move down, take out the artillery, get down to the bridge, blow the bridge up, because if you didn't get there in time, they would just reinforce at the bridge and you never do it. And it was carefully balanced was if you wanted to play it properly, you just sit there and say, okay, I'm going to sit here at safe range and blow everyone up with my artillery. And as I blow that unit up with artillery, I'll move in. And if you had 20 or 30 turns to do it, you could do it quite easily using a lot of artillery and then moving up slowly and doing it maybe how you might consider in a simulation you might do it. But it didn't give you those options, and there was always sort of like, as you moved up, there was always something extra. Whereas, this has developed a front line here. I mean, this doesn't have to stay there as sort of like objective two. He could move down. I'm leaving him there as a reserve. We got these sort of as a reserve, but you develop this sort of dynamic that's far more, I don't know how to describe it, but less insulting on the intelligence. The sense of the suspension of disbelief can be applied, I think. And I think the thing that led me, I think the big thing I got about playing this game was I just felt like I was going through a process of moving counters, because I couldn't even see what they were. I couldn't really see how strong they were. And I realised you could sort of upgrade them, and that's something else. So you're upgrading units, they take a bit of a pounding. You sort of think, oh, okay, upgrade. I've got some points. I'll spend it on upgrading this unit. And you sort of think, well, and a lot of these games actually do that. You actually take specialisms, so you go through the game, and they're just game mechanics that really, you sort of think, well, hang on, what's going on here is not so much a game, although it is a game. It's a gamification of a game. In it applies so much complexity and additional sort of twiddliness that you end up sort of finding that you're just going through certain mechanisms. So you're just constantly moving these units around. There's no sort of reflection of how would I do this if I was in a war. And again, I don't want to sort of labour too much on it, but it is something that I think is, it always strikes me as being, well, that's actually quite relevant. Why would someone want to play a game in any sense? And this comes back to my original sort of observations about hidden and dangerous. It's sort of like, well, to some extent you play a game because it's there in front of you, but to some extent you're also playing part of your own history. It's time you spent doing your thing, and if you want to remember going around shooting people in the head, and that becomes your memory, you sort of think, well, I'd rather do something else, like go outside. Or if I do something, I'd rather it became more relevant to something that I would like to maybe say I looked at. And this is sort of like it's sort of thinking, oh, it's a war, isn't it? I mean, this is real, the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. But the thing is, I sort of have a vague understanding of what happened, and I'm slightly interested. I wouldn't say I have an overt interest. When I started Warblog, I sort of thought, it wasn't sort of, oh, I've got a real pounding interest in war. I just sort of thought, well, I want to do something that I have an interest in, a vague interest, that is sort of, not sort of something I'm making up. And so I am, and I always have been interested in sort of, reading about these sort of global conflicts to some passing extent. For example, whenever I get on an airplane, I always get a copy of the Financial Times, because it would always detail things in a sort of more pragmatic sense. In particular, I always like the refinery and the ore mining articles, sort of Rand Bongs develop a new copper mine in Botswana, and Ingan Holdings develop sort of a new technology for deep sea sub-exploration oil production systems in the South Pacific Ocean. And these are sorts of things that sort of interest you. And similarly along those veins, you get sort of and APTLM rebels advance on South Congolese hill range in outer Congo land. I'm just trying to make up words that aren't insulting, but they sound exotic and interesting, and it's these sort of mysterious things happening in distant places. And so creating a blog to sort of focus on that, it just sort of appealed. I could have quite readily done a blog on global ore mining and refinery systems, where you maybe do something like that. But, obviously I didn't think of that. So, there's obviously, I think, an appeal to global conflicts. And so it was sort of really more, you know, incidental in that sense. But anyway, I'm just going to get back to this. See, again, we're playing this game, and it's not a case of I have to do it by 6 turns. I'm just going to sort of sit here, I think, because I don't really want to attack these. I've been littering them away, but my strategy is, and they've messed up with their air defense, but is to really use these drones, which is sort of, you sort of think, well, okay, is that a game? Well, obviously it's a game, but I'm going to definitely split these guys up. I'm going to use them on here. But I think at the end of the day, it provides you with a sort of, some tools to apply a sense of critical analysis. And I think, you sort of think, well, what's the point of critical analysis? Well, everyone likes to critically analyze things around them, events. I think that's true. People, they're sort of thinking, well, it's not a case of reading a headline. Green coloured units beat blue coloured units in endless war somewhere else, and you think, oh, great, the green units beat the blue ones. And you tell your friend. You want to think about it. You're thinking, well, hang on, that's interesting. What you want to think a little bit further than that, and there's always that thinking a little bit further, and that's, I think, is the critical element to it. How far you think, I think, is less critical. You don't have to sort of resolve the equation. It's like a chess piece, a chess puzzle. I was looking at one the other day, and it said checkmate in 2 moves. And I looked at it, and I spent about 3 or 4 minutes trying to figure out what was going on, and I couldn't figure out which one was the king and which one was the queen. So that was about as far as I got. But the critical aspect was I was thinking about it, and it was something that I enjoyed doing. And whilst coming to the conclusion that I didn't actually understand where the king and queen was, it didn't matter. I'd still applied myself to that momentarily, and that's, I think, the essence of critical analysis, really, it being able to do something like that. But I think what we're going to do here again is fall back. Well, I think we're going to put in some earthworks there whilst we've got the opportunity. So definitely a deeper video than I was intending, in the sense that I wasn't intending to talk a load of crap. Let's see if we can get these tanks. 0.5, 0.9. So we're still not getting it a free pass. So we've still got most of our drones. We've lost one, which is a pain. But I want to take these out. So we're going to go for 3, 3, and the rest are going to go down here on that, whatever that results in. One damage. Oh, no effect. Got him. Got him. Got him. Did they fire on this guy? I think they did. But that's the essence of drones. You see, oh, did we move these? Maybe I forgot. And the rest are going to go down here. See, I think we don't get to fire at the AA system until all the other units are gone. I did that deliberately, but you sort of think, oh, that's interesting, interesting way to preserve your AA units, your air defense units. But the thing is, what's actually happening there? You're basically targeting all your cannon fodder, and I don't think these troops would just think, why are we here? Oh, we're here so we get preferentially targeted by these loitering drones, so that the air defense system can prevail. because once that's taken out, we'll have liberty to do exactly what we did there and just use it to take out their indirect area, ability, indirect area fire capability. That again needs to be taken out, but we can possibly do that in other ways. Now, what we can do possibly is engage in some kind of conflict here. I've got some more units here. So what I'm going to do is this. And it gives us a flank. Doesn't matter. Well, we want the infantry unit, I think. And let's go for an attack because I'm feeling bored. I mean, in that sense, that an exchange. You see, that's the thing. You sort of get, we didn't have to do that. Now we're going to have to wait another turn to recover. Not the end of the world. But over here, I'll do an attrition, but I can't be bothered at this stage. Right, so it's the Armenian turn. Well, obviously they figured out what's sort of happening. The question is, do we want to preserve these air defense units there or try moving them back? Because if we pull back, we could just hold the line possibly and see what happens. But the line has sort of fallen a little like that. Oh, we can possibly attack in there. Possibly pushing these engineers here. Exchange. So his engineers should be quite pounded, really. Let's do an attrition. Maybe about 1 to 3 odds. 1 to 4 odds, I think. Okay, and we move these down to there. Consider what we want to do next. So, we definitely now want to take out this air defense unit. But could we use it? See, I sort of want to do that, so I'm going to put everything on that. It's the major assault. I wouldn't ordinarily do this, but it's a major objective. It's the whole objective of this video is to focus on taking out the air defense units. 0.4, because the infantry don't get as much damage. 0.5, 0.7, what's he on? 3.6 is nothing. 4.4. What we've got to do is try and punch through onto that. Which means we really want to take this stack out. But we could possibly do it by breaking through there. Now obviously we're taking a pounding from that, but we could possibly So we've got this minute little assault going on that's really quite particular, and is the result of not the game structure, but the decisions made to hold the line, to advance the line, and how to use this. This battle could be happening there, it could be happening here. And I think one of the things that's interesting, and has always struck me as being interesting, is the concept of the formation of a line. So we've got this formation of a line now. Now, it's not a line that goes all the way across the board like I'd be tempted to if they had a front line here. It's a line that stretches based on the importance of this road as a direct route. The inclusion of, say, engineering modes to impede that as a logistical route, that has sort of formed it itself, but has flanks that can obviously be applied and dealt with. But it could be happening there, it could be happening somewhere else. So it forms its own sort of nuance in that sense. And in particular, I think this is defined in my mind's eye by the film Gettysburg. I saw the film Gettysburg, and I wasn't told anything about it when it came on, and I'm not sure whether I was with someone else, because I think I was. They said, here's the film Gettysburg, and I think I was somewhere. And the first sort of sets, it looks like a bunch of Civil War reenactors. You think, oh, this film sucks. There's like about, you see these blokes in a field, and it's just like a nice normal field, and there's about 10 of them or something. And then some other blokes come along, the Union, and the guy forms them up in line, and they're shooting at each other, but then he says, they're being shot at as they form up into line. You think, oh, this sucks, that's not realistic. And then the commander says fire, and they fire, and of course the film Gettysburg is an epic. And the start off with it just sort of like one little unit firing, and it puts things into perspective. But there's also another part in the film where he's talking about the line. He says, this is the end of the line. He's talking to one of the commanders, and he looks to his left, and there's no one there. And I think it's a good definition of what a flank is. So you can say this is the end of the line, or here's the end of the line there. There are all sorts of really interesting aspects of the film that have far greater impact in my mind's eye than the actual overall delivery of the film, like Pickett's Charge, which is sort of, just such a sad waste. Just thinking, no, don't do it. Wow. It's sort of like, if you want to slap your forehead again and again, just watch Glory. I think that's what it's called. And Pickett's Charge, and it's like, no, not again. He does it every time I watch this film. He charges 2 miles across open land and dies. It's like, no, I can't watch it too many times. But there are other little things where they've got this line, and they're behind their little logs and their entrenchments that they've made, and they start to see the enemy advancing through this fairly dense thicket woodland. And it's really interesting to see how that happens, because you can't see them until they're like about 20 yards away, and it's quite interesting, really. But all war is sort of the same in the sense that it's bloody, and but so we've got the formation of lines. It's a bit like that, what I was saying in the Glory film. You sort of think, oh, hang on. So you just imagine them saying, there's not even a little town there. I thought it was a bit of a town. It's just a crossroads. It doesn't even have a name. And I think in the film Glory, they look at a map and they say, we'll start here. And they look at it and it's, what's that? It's the town Gettysburg, because it was not really known for anything until the Civil War, obviously. But I can't remember what I was talking about now, but I think we're going to attack this stack here, because we want to pounce through onto that. Now, do we want to include him? Yeah. Another exchange. Protect the flank. So we got a flank forming. We've got a line, a battle line. And here we're just keeping a line. doing attrition, but I can't be bothered. So the Armenians, do we want to support that line, or do we want to develop this line? You see, we've got decisions. I mean, we've got units here. Would we want to hold them here in order to, we could engage these. We could proactively engage these some way, and I'm going to do that. I don't really want to be doing that in the sense that I don't intend to be playing much more because it's 15 minutes left of the video, and I don't think we're going to get that far. But I'm going to commit everything just on a off-the-cuff whim to fight over here, not building up. This is what I would do. I think I'd naturally try to repulse this line down here, but I'm just jumping at a decision there. So again, we've got choices, but I think we really need to take out this armoured unit if we can. Deliver some pain in that area. $5.9, so it's not cheap. Okay, so we got drones, and again, we're going to take out this stack. He's recovered slightly. It just seems expensive because we're battling through a little infantry unit, 0.6. He's recovering each turn, so we have to do more than one. So we've essentially done 0.4 worth of damage so far, 1.1 worth of damage, 1.5 worth of damage, 2.2 worth of damage, 2.9 worth of damage, 3.1 worth of damage on top of what he was, puts him at 7.5, which he could have been doing a morale check for. So again, that little point which you could say is Gettysburg is taking a real pounding, and here's the front line forming this epic battle. Where's Pickett? We can say, do we want to hold them? Well, we put some anti-tank there. I think what we want to do is this. Push him up there. So we get this real reason and real sort of purpose behind the formation of this line. And we're going to go for it because we've only got 12 minutes and I just want to sort of do something really. An exchange 2-1. So we're having a real pound down here. This is a real sort of epic event. And I'm quite enjoying this game. I just wish it wasn't so rushed in the sense that I have to narrate it. Because I hardly ever play games just for the sheer pleasure of playing it. Everything I've played, I've played a few, but I could probably count them on two hands that I've played without recording it, just because I was intrigued to see what would happen. We've done that. Now over here we've got problems, you see, but we might not ever get to realise how significant those problems are. But here come the Armenians. How much is still used? So we're sending everything over here. Now this is a sort of Napoleonic strategy, I think, and I gauge the essence of his attacking one enemy and then coming down and attacking another one. But if we can take this lot out, in theory, I don't think we could even, but there's a possibility that we can attack them. That's the strategy I'm playing, but I don't think we will be, we have to get everything onto one unit, but the bottom line is they've only got 3 units and we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, possibly 9, 10, 11 units. just from a numbers game, that sort of makes sense. And then we can possibly then bring everything back down here to, because this is about as bad as it's going to get. But here, definitely want to be taking out this armoured unit. Ooh, I felt a big ha building up there, but it wasn't to be. So we can't attack it, it's moved over there. Can we do anything against this? Let's do an attrition just to see what the odds are. Give us a sense for how. I can never remember how this attrition thing works, whether it's tied in reality to the full combat system or whether it's separate, because that would tell us that it's a 1 to 2 odds, which is not great. But sometimes it sort of says, hang on, the odds are 2 to 1 there. I do that for real, but because I hadn't bothered to mentally calculate it, I don't know. So again, here's our massive thing of drones. He's at 6.5. Can we do it? And is my strategy significant and relevant and worthwhile? 0.5. So he's got to be doing morale checks every time I hit him, which means he's due to rout anytime soon. But obviously, oh, that was a big one. Obviously, it's not happening. Yes, there it is. And now let's go for the air defense unit. 3. You see, when they're only the air defense unit, they get much bigger odds. 4.7, so he's down to 7.75. So once we've got rid of that unit, he's going to have to do something to protect it now. And again, we really want to. You don't necessarily have to be fighting against this stack now, but considering the odds. Okay, he's only on his own, so let's take him out. I think this is probably going to be overwhelming, more than is needed, but I feel like doing it. Two to one. How can that be 2 to 1 against an anti-tank position? This is just a couple of blokes with these sort of handheld ATGMs or whatever, anti-tank guided missile platforms, attacked by 2 companies of mechanized, a company of motorized, an armored company, 4 companies. It's like a regiment. No, it was a very strong battalion, mixed battalion, has attacked this sort of like ragbag anti-tank unit and failed. I have to look into that. This should be taken over like artillery. However, the point is that they get a massive bonus because they've got the anti-tank stuff. They defend heavily. They just don't attack as well, in theory. 7 minutes to go. Well, maybe we should be attacking. 0. Okay. Right. Okay. They're not going to move very fast. We're not going to get there, but let's bring these down as well. The engineers want to do something with their lives. Okay, so we've pulled back. Maneuver warfare. Where's his tank? Let's see what we can do. Yes, so destroyed a tank company. Is that realistic? Who knows? Right, so we got our drones. But we want to pound down on that. Well, we're out of range for that. I feel like playing this more and continuing it, but I'm not dug in. I think I'm going to go for this stack here and then attack it. I'm going to only put half of it in now. So we've routed the ATGM. Could possibly do a full assault. Eliminated him. Hang on. Well, next turn I'll be able to take that out. What I'm going to do is just use it on this. See, I think the secret to this game because there's only less than 2 minutes to go. Let's see what this does. An exchange. I'm going to leave it at that. That is quite interesting. I think my strategy has brought up quite a few considerations, and that's what it's all about, really. It's sort of thinking about what happens if you do things like this with some sort of semblance of reality based around it, as opposed to be channeled along this sort of like this tram line of do this and, you know, just to sort of solve the problem, in the sense that it doesn't make sense because there's always sort of something inconvenient somewhere along the line that's going to be a bit of a hassle that doesn't really make a lot of sense to why it's there. You know, we could look at the dynamics of that line and how it flowed and how it works, and you know what we can do here with breaking through, and you know, and I think there's a lot to be taken from that little game, and you know the implications, significance of all, you know, focusing everything over here in this instance. But that's it. So it's pretty tight. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.